So let's do that in yeshiva. I hate to say it, but shouldn't we be able to do that during the year?
When recess comes and your son is an athlete, I happen to know our son, and he plays punch ball and he plays elimination, he gets that first kid out, it's no longer the first day. My son was given a Rebbe, and I knew the Rebbe peripherally. I knew his reputation, quote unquote. I called the menahel of the yeshiva and I said, you got to change his class. Welcome to the Learning Curve podcast, brought to you by Mishpacha magazine.
We are raising children in a changing and challenging world.
So let's tackle the important issues facing from families today.
I am Rabbi Garfield, menahel of Yeshiva Teres Emes in Houston, and I love talking about chinuch.
I am Rabbi Schonfeld, menahel Yeshiva Katana of Manhattan, Beis Tipra of Manhattan, and director of Camp Aish. I also love talking chinuch and sometimes fishing.
Join us as we answer your questions and discuss the topics that matter to parents the most.
Welcome back to the Learning Curve for a special back-to-school edition. As before Season 3 will Emir Hashem start after Sukkot, but as we prepare for yeshiva and wind down the summer months, we have a lot to talk about. So, Rabbi Garfield, how was your summer?
Oh, wow. I guess that means it's time to come to terms with the fact that the summer is over. And I think I'm there. I think I'm ready to face reality.
Yeah, well, we had the chance to actually meet over the summer. We met, our families met, right? It was
Everyone was like, who is that? Wow, that's Ari Schonfeld. All the time they heard of you, but they never met you. So that was very special. I got to see you in your natural habitat over there in the Catskills. It looks nice.
Was that your first time in the Catskills?
No, but it was my first time to your type of place. Like, I've never been to what is it called, Bungalow Colony? I don't even know what they're called.
Yes.
So I don't think I've been to Bungalow Colony, but not so much. So it was nice to see, and it was great to see you and how relaxed everyone was. It was great.
Baruch Hashem. So now, I don't know if we have no camp jokes for at least 10 months, right? Registration hasn't even opened yet, right? So,
Well, I have to say, I had a very interesting camp summer because one of my children was in a camp. I had 3 kids in camp, different camps, but one of them, due to a certain reason, we had to end up going there for Shabbos. I spent Shabbos in a real camp, and I like my first time.
joke's on you. Joke's on you.
Yes, you should have seen it. It's nowhere near as impressive as Aish, I'm sure, but I have to say it was a spectacular Shabbos, and I was very impressed by the whole matzah of camp. It was a beautiful experience.
Baruch Hashem. Yeah. So I think Aish was a very impactful summer.
Yeah. So did you have any new insights for Bari? Any new kneches or maislach? Or you have to share with our listeners one reason that justifies at least your enthusiasm, you know?
So usually I wouldn't share a story that a parent shares with me, but this is such a small, but I think mind-blowing story, even though it's, I don't know if it's going to make it to a Yol Gold, Tisha B'Av session, but it's the power of camp in a nutshell. So I don't think if the boy finds, I'm not going to say his name, but I don't think if he finds out that we're staying over the story, he'll be, embarrassed. I think it's a chashuv story. One of our superb campers, and Baruch Hashem, all of our campers are superb, goes home. I thought he had a wonderful summer like everyone else. His father sends me a message the day camp ends. And I will actually, you know what? Let me read to you the message. I might as well, right? His father sends me a message and I read it. I'm like, wow. And he says, hi, this is so-and-so. Thank you so much for an amazing summer for my son. We just got home. Literally, the first thing he did was go into his room and take down all the sports players that are hanging that he paid good money for. And he said, these shouldn't be hanging in my room. He said the chinuch he received in camp made him want to do it on his own. So an incredible story. And what's to me even more incredible is I shared this story with you, Rabbi Garfield, and he said to me, oh, was this a point of emphasis in camp this summer? Who our real heroes are? And I said, it didn't come up once. Not once the entire summer did we mention anything about the NBA basketball players and the football players. Are they the real role models are Moshe Feinstein? No. But when this boy comes to camp, and I think all camps have similar experiences, and he sees that the best player on the basketball team is also his counselor, who's a role model, who's a Ben Torah, he's able to see that it's not a stira. And I think that's one of the huge takeaways of camp is for kids to see counselors, madrichim, b'nai Torah, who are quote unquote normal, who are superb in the base medrash and superb out of the base medrash. I think everyone gains. This is just one small vignette from a Chashuv summer that I happen to have this platform, so I'm able to share my stories. I'm sure there are similar stories in all other camps throughout the summer.
Spoke to another menahel who also is in camp. It seems like a lot of menahelim do this. It's like a common overlap, I guess, where they go in the summer and they love it. And they tell me that there's the ability to really influence kids and really connect is so different and so much heightened in camp. And it made me wonder, kids spend 10 months of the year not in camp, right?
Yep.
So what can we learn? What could schools learn from what makes camp so spectacular from a chinuch perspective that we could take back to us? Because, it's chaval that a kid like this, let's say this kid, right? So like he goes to school and he has rebbeim and he's learning Torah and all the things that go on in a regular year, but that didn't inspire him to connect with pride to take down the pictures. What's the message to us?
It's an awesome question. I always wonder, and this is my when we have meetings after camp, and we try to figure out one went right, one went wrong, Baruch Hashem. So this summer, again, was Bli Anhar, a beautiful summer. And this question kept coming up with me and my staff, which are all Rebbeim, and some of them are Menahelim. It was, how can we take this experience and this success into the classroom and into the yeshiva? And if you're lucky enough to be a Menahel, then you're able to maybe speak about it to your Rebbeim. And if you're a Rebbe, and I think, I'll tell you another small story, and it wasn't in our Masifta camp. We have a Masifta program that's part of our camp. And I speak every Friday night about the beauty of camp changes lives. I give it a schmooze every Friday night to the whole camp. And a kid who I don't know comes over to me. He's in the Masifta. He was never in my camp. Again, we're kind of joined, but we're not joined. And he says to me, remember you spoke Friday night about camp changing lives? And I said, yeah. I want to let you know that this camp this year changed mine. That was it. Said, you don't know who I am. And I went back to him a few days later and I said, hey, you got to give me something. How did it change your life? And he goes, too many things. I said, no. I even said to him, I have a podcast.
Wow. I hope he's listening.
I don't know this boy. I don't know this boy. First time I ever spoke to him in my life. And he said to me, isn't this crazy, his answer? He said to me, no, when I wake up in the morning and I walk to Shachris, the division heads say hello to me and my counselors say hello to me like I matter.
So let's do that in yeshiva.
Crazy?
I hate to say it, but shouldn't we be able to do that during the year?
So I think the biggest challenge that we have in yeshiva is we are so busy, and I hope I'm not being judgmental or condescending. We're so busy preaching and teaching lessons, ideals, Hashkafas HaTorah, Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, ABC, right?
Rigor.
We're so busy preaching and teaching, we don't stop enough and see the kids ba'asher hu sham. We don't stop enough and just embrace them. A Rebbe told me, one of our chevra said to me, he said the biggest lesson he's learned in the last 5-10 years in chinuch is that, he said, the toughest kids, you have to work on yourself to like them. You can't just be nice to them. You have to like them. You have to train yourselves and work on it to like the annoying kid and to like the kid who calls out. And to me, in camp, maybe it's easier, maybe because there's less lessons. I know the Rebbe that is preaching and teaching about not following superheroes and not following NBA players is maybe less impactful because it feels forced on a certain aspect than the counselor who's the best player on the basketball team and is also up before Shacharis learning. That is much more impactful to this kid than the schmooze.
Learn from what I do, not what I say. Learn from my actions. Learn from
Right.
my life experience.
Right. And I think especially in elementary school where it's not just rigor, it's you need rote and you need consistency and you need so much of that basic day-to-day activity where the Rebbe part that has to be, I don't want to say forced, but I almost think we try too hard sometimes.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah, it's a balance because like half parents want us to be more aggressive academically and half parents want us to be more sweet and supportive, right? Or
it's not a stira. Why is that a contradiction?
Because it's a matter of focus to some extent. It's very hard to, keep the academic sort of rigor, or whatever the right word is, academic advancement in your mind, while you're also making sure that you're providing that emotional warmth. It's just, you're right, it shouldn't be.
That's
But
the job.
right.
That's the job.
I agree that we should try to do both, but Lamaisa, the more we focus on making sure what, like, for example, you have a faculty meeting, or you meet one-on-one with the Rebbe, right? You choose what you talk about. Now,
Right.
if you have to finish the curriculum for that year, you have to cover the Shoroshim, you're going to do the JSAT at the end, you're going to be held accountable for an academic achievement, which is very measurable. So sometimes that could slip into the focus, right? Because that's,
Right.
or you could not talk about that stuff and talk about, the emotional development or who's connecting to the kids. And they're both important. You could try to do it 50-50. I don't know. It's just the
I don't
reality
think it's
is,
50-50. I think it's 100-100. I hate to be sound so cliche and so eye roll. I think our job as leaders is to 100% push academic rigor and excellence and push, and at the same exact time, 100% embrace the kids for who they are.
I
I
thought
don't
you were
see
saying
that
that,
at
yeah, part of the reason camp works is because there's less of the rigor, the preaching part. I thought that's what you were saying. The reality is that 100% comes with a certain amount of work. That's not fun.
because I think inevitably in yeshiva, we don't do a great job at bifurcating. We don't do a great job at tanzing at Beit Chazanahs, and we focus so much on the academics, which we should, but we don't at the exact same time embrace the kids, the Mitsuyan and the weak ones, for what they need. Someone told me recently that a Talmud of Rabbi Bear who opened a beis medrash, a very chashuv beis medrash. I don't want to say his name. I don't know if he wanted to know him publicly. And he went to Rabbi Bear Wachtfeitel and he said, "What should I focus 90% of my focus? Should it be on the Mitsuyanim? Working them on their Chaims and their Baruch Bears, right? Are those the boys I should talk to the most? Or should it be the kids that need the mental health and the kids that are struggling with things? Which one should I focus on?" And Rabbi Bear said to him, "The question is a toast. There's no such thing as a kid that doesn't need chizuk today. Even the Mitsuyan needs your chizuk."
Well, I mean,
So
really, that's the famous Maisa with Altar Slabotka, right? When he asked Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, this is brought down, he asked him what should be the focus of the yeshiva. He was opening a high school, actually, called Or Yisrael. And he said, "L'hachiyos Nidchalim," I forgot the buzzer, "L'hachiyos
right.
Shavarim," broken hearts, to build the broken hearts. That should be the focus. Slabotka,
Right.
no less. This isn't
So
clean.
my takeaway to go back as I take off my color war red and blue hat and I put on my menahel hat, I am re-energized and will be refocused to push my yeshiva mitzvah Hashem to excellence in all areas, but to embrace faculty first, and then rebbeim, teachers, and children next, in pushing on the one hand and embracing and seeing them for who they are and what they bring to the table in a real way.
Beautiful. We're doing something a little different here. We got some clips from some parents, and we're going to play one about a parent who's talking about some of the practical things that they do to prepare their child for the school year. And so let's listen to what this parent has to share.
I like to help my elementary school aged children be prepared for school by going very carefully through their very often complicated supply list and just making sure they really have everything that's like the right one for that school, the right one for that age. I find when they come prepared, that is something that they're able to control by knowing that they have everything that they need. And often also fresh uniform, even if it's not like a full set, just one brand new shirt with the nice little creases on it from the uniform room also goes a long way.
All right. She mentioned the school supplies.
Dun 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 dun.
Yes. That is the bane of everyone. How do you guys do it over there? We've gone through so many different.
It depends on the year, literally. Does the school pay for it and order it, and the parents pick it up? Do the parents, and in Manhattan, it's challenging because we don't have so many local options of everything. Manhattan is more expensive, so parents would prefer maybe sometimes to go to Passaic or Muncie to do their shopping.
And then there are companies that claim they're going to do it, but then they don't do it on time, or they send junky pens or crayons, and it's a whole big deal.
I think the overall point that this mother was making, which was important, is, hakol halachach hareshis, and when your child comes into the first day, even feeling prepared,
Right.
even like some schools give out You're supposed to bring to school the card that you give in. Usually means if you're up to date on your wife's immunizations or
They still
tuition.
do that? I didn't know people do that
Yeah,
anymore.
she was still doing it, giving the admission card, I think they call it.
Yeah.
Your kid just feels better, and all of a sudden, "I don't have it. Rabbi, I don't have my admission card. Oh, no. Am I allowed to sit down at the desk?"
Right.
So the more that you can prepare your child for that first day, especially the more anxious children, the more you can start them off on the right foot. I will share with you that I had a parent a couple of years ago that was transferring into school, and the mother called me all nervous.
Huh.
And just the first day, and I said to her, "Mrs. It's the first day at 9:00. At 9:06, it's not."
Good point.
And that when recess comes, and your son is an athlete, I happen to know our son, and he plays punch ball and he plays elimination, he gets that first kid out, it's no longer the first day.
That's
So,
true.
so I do think we overrate the first day, but kids are they need to be ready for that
Yeah.
first day.
We do. We used to invite all the kids to come to school, like the day before, drop off their stuff.
Really?
Oh, but the school, Baruch Hashem, is too big
Why?
for
Why'd
that.
you do that? For this
Because
reason?
a little bit, yeah, and also they bring in these bags and they get the carts and families who have 4 kids, they're coming in with all this stuff. So
Yeah,
you
but
see like
by us, like the teachers you're building, that's impressive. That your building is fully ready the day before.
yeah, 4 o'clock. But yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
But now we just do new kid preschool because for the little kids we have a preschool, so it's hard. And then new kids. So the newer, like anyone who's new to the school could come and, smell it out before. But the regular, the other students come all
Have
like
you ever
crazy early.
had an experience where a kid who wasn't quote unquote fully prepared, it threw them off in a major way?
I would say second grade and under, where they're just like so anxious. They won't let their mother leave or something like that. But, it's hard to gauge the level of discomfort that a child will have. But there's certainly a lot of anxiety that they feel that we want to sort of mitigate if we can.
Right, in a
Mhm.
yeshiva like ours, and I guess I'll let you know, we have a new Rebbe this year, and we had a new Rebbe last year, and in a small yeshiva, a new Rebbe really matters. Those are big things, because every Rebbe is known by every parent, and our
Mm.
yeshiva is really the way Houston was,
Yeah.
15 years ago, before Big Garfield showed up. Really a small little family. And that first day where you usually know the Rebbe because you knew him last year, and your brother had him, and your older
Right.
brother had him,
Right.
there is that unease. That's any transition.
Yeah.
Uh,
I will say I love like 20 minutes into class time, like 9:15 at our school. It's so quiet. I go to my office, there's nothing to do. Every teacher shows up, Baruch Hashem, pretty much. Every
right.
kid is in class. It's just
Yep.
like quiet.
No one
You
got in
walk down the hall,
trouble.
it's
No one
quiet.
has a report.
Yeah.
Do you have an assembly to start off the day?
We have every day for first through fourth grade, boys and girls. We meet every morning. I get to say a little Dvar Torah, connect with the kids.
Right.
And then I dismiss them from there. So we have that. And then, yeah, the boys daven. So they have whatever they do after minyan. The menahel gives some kind of spiel. And I'm sure
Right.
the girls also do something. So each group has their own.
Yeah, so we meet in the base medrash, Baruch Hashem. This might be the first year, little T4 that we might not fit, which is very exciting for us. But it's also, you got to give the kids 10 minutes just
Right, to
to
schmooze and to
ooh, get
connect.
out of the system and the new sneakers and
Right,
this
right.
kid and this and where were you? I didn't see you. And as much as the Rebbeim are nervous and the kids are nervous, there really is an excitement for the first day.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, now we asked the Rebbe to talk about what he does to prepare. And you'll hear from this Rebbe his thoughts about what he tries to know before and what he wants to do to get ready.
Aleichem, my name is Mati Zeiger, 7th grade Rebbe, Yeshiva Darchei Torah. Regarding the question about what I like to know about my class before I get them, is as little as possible. There's a minhag amongst Rebbeim that they sit down, and they go over, and they tell the next Rebbe details. And I feel that it would give the kid a disadvantage for me to have whatever preconceived notions I have about a kid based on the previous year's Rebbe. Not only that, on the first day of class, I clearly tell the boys that I know very little about them. And because it's very simple. If they had an amazing year last year and they don't have an amazing year this year, then who cares what they did last year? And if they had a terrible year last year and they have an amazing year this year, once again, who cares what they did last year? So then the kuda is they should come in with a clean slate as much as possible. I do work in the yeshiva. I do know what's going on, but they should have the ability to come in with a clean slate, and we should be able to get to know each other in a way that's productive and helpful to everybody.
All right, there you have it. Well, we know Rabbi Zeiger is a real chacham, real expert mechanech. What do you think about this? Seems like one of the old shilas, I feel like it's been discussed again and again. But what does Ari Schonfeld, what does Rabbi Schonfeld feel about it?
So a little bit of a tidbit about Rabbi Zeiger,
Yeah.
who I did not speak to him about this episode. This is the first time I'm hearing him. I didn't know he was coming on today. I learned with him together by Rabbi Bachfeigel in South Fallsburg. And the real tidbit is that he had a chance to be really famous because when I started Night Seder America, my first phone call was to Mati Zeiger.
Oh, really?
And I said to him, I have this idea. COVID is happening. I think the world is shutting down. I want to teach Gemara to kids. I don't think I could do it on my own. Would you like to do it with me? And he said, you're out of your mind.
Really?
Yes. And he basically hung up the phone on me. I don't know. I remember why he felt that it wouldn't work, or he didn't want, he wasn't comfortable. I forgot the reason. So he turned down Night Seder America, but a tremendous pikeach, and then from the best, an incredible Rebbe. Rebbeim asked me my opinion. Should I get last year's list? I get this question from Rebbeim all the time, especially now we have new Rebbeim. And my answer is I don't have a strong opinion on this. I think it really depends. Rabbi Zeiger has a strong opinion on it, so I'll let his opinion stand. But I understand the Rebbe that says, I want to start fresh. I also understand the Rebbe that says, hey, if this kid has things that trigger him, don't I want to know the triggers? Right? If this kid is allergic to peanuts, shouldn't I know not to bring peanuts into school? I mean, of course, we're not free, but right? If this kid is a yasim, of course, you have to know about it. If this kid has a mother who is incredibly challenging, and shouldn't I know that when I call her? So mitzarecha, there are things I think that everyone agrees that are important to know. He did mention he works in the yeshivas. I think it sounds like he'll find out those things. But what I agree with is the Rebbe that just didn't connect with the kid, or didn't have a good year with the kid, stuff like that, which is anything that is subjective, you should not know about. But anything that is objective, family dynamic, something in the family isn't like, of course, those are important to find out. I let the Rebbeim lead me in this, but I do think there is, the answer is it depends.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the fact that I don't have such strong feelings about it. You have to know yourself as a Rebbe. If you think it'll somehow impugn your ability to give the kids a chance, then you shouldn't do it. But I would think that a professional could hear a Rebbe's perspective and keep that in mind and be healthy about it, I would think. And like you said, there are so many different things that we learn over the years about child has trouble reading, or he's a slow processor, give him a chance to answer, keep him away from another kid, or
As
I
a
don't know,
Rebbe, what did you do? As a Rebbe, what did
well,
you
I was
do?
a ninth grade Rebbe, so it wasn't in the same school. So therefore, my access to the eighth grade was a little less, but I don't remember specifically going one by one, or I don't remember specifically knowing, but like I said, I don't know if I feel so strongly about it.
When I was in YBH as a Rebbe, there was only one parallel. There was one class. So I knew every kid basically. I also had ran a day camp then, and almost all the kids came to my day camp. So I knew most of the kids already. Unless there was something that I needed to know, I'll figure it out on day 3.
I guess it's really the menal's achrayas to make sure that the necessary information is shared minimally. Like you said, like a family situation or
So let's ask the question this way. As a parent, would you want to call the Rebbe before the year to let the Rebbe know, my son, you should know, has ADHD. My son has anxiety. He might get nervous. He might come across this way, but don't translate it. It's the wrong impression. Would you want to give the Rebbe the heads up? And on one hand, you're already labeling your kid. On the other hand, you're giving the Rebbe the tools and maybe the
when I was
skills.
at ninth grade Rebbe, I used to call every parent in advance. Now, part of that is because
Let's talk to the parents, because most Rebbeim are not listening to our podcast because they already know all the answers.
well,
These are
okay,
the
I'm just saying, I think that's a healthy activity to talk to the Rebbe, especially if there's a reason to. Meaning, if your kid is fine and there's nothing, that needs to be talked about, you don't have to call. There's no chiyuv to call. But if you do feel there's some information that's valid and they need to know, for sure you should call. I would think. Do you disagree with that?
No, I just think that
What's the drawback?
the drawback is that you don't want your son labeled. And
But he
Rebbeim Zazen in Fart
he
mentioned,
has that. Like,
right?
you're talking about something that's significant enough that he's going to find out, And I think most Rebbeim are professional enough not to let a label, like I said, get in the way of their ability to embrace a kid. I mean, what are you telling the Rebbe already? you know? He shot his last Rebbe, like what?
Now, I wonder if this changes, and it probably does, is that the reality is, which will be an episode that we will cover in season 3, we already decided, is the girls' moras, that many of them are very young, and they're 20, and they're out of seminary. So then the question is, then it becomes a much more delicate question. It's not a seasoned Rebbe.
Right.
It's maybe an amazing girl who her youthful exuberance and her excitement is going to be she'll be the best thing for my daughter. But this 4th grade daughter who has a little bit of ADHD or anxiety or whatever it is, and you call up this girl who's on her way back from BJJ, and you tell her, and she's not now this is a kasha, so why is she my daughter's
Right.
mora?
You know why? Because you're not there. Because you don't want to do it. That's why, Mom.
What do you mean? What
The
does that mean?
mother who's calling is not being a mora. If she was, we wouldn't have a mora shortage.
Here we go. Rabbi Garfield, go. Give your pitch.
No,
30-second
I'm just
pitch.
saying,
Go.
like, you want good moras. Be a good mora. Go ahead. We want you.
Awesome. Don't complain that our mora's at 19 if you're
Right,
35
and
and
you're
you're not
going
a
to the
mora.
gym. I'm happy you get to go to the gym. That's wonderful.
Shots fired. Love it.
All right. Now, you
But
actually segued very well to the next clip. So we could go into the next clip, which is someone who's concerned about what they heard about the teacher. And let's hear what they have to say about it.
When you hear something negative about a teacher, I think that it matters a little bit from whom you hear the negativity. If it comes from a parent in the class, I'm always very careful not to be what I call a campaigner parent. This is the parent who calls up half or more of the class, presents a situation or opinion, and campaigns for other to come around to a certain way of thinking, or potentially worse, to take some sort of action. I don't believe in being that type of parent, but I also don't believe in participating in the campaign. This is a time to be a gibor and be a devil's advocate. Be down the kafsuchus. Are we sure we have an accurate representation of what happened? Who is the source of this supposed intelligence? A 7-year-old? A 10-year-old? Someone who tends to get involved in drama or politics? If the campaigner seems receptive to the possibility that their activity is pointless, and in my opinion, it is not a way to solve the problem, then say something. Otherwise, don't join the ADA. It can go nowhere positive. If, on the other hand, the information comes from a child, then a parent has to strike a balance between considering whether a certain amount of advocacy is necessary on their behalf, or whether one should be mechazik the child to grow and meet a challenge. I'm a believer in the notion that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In life, there are many challenges and challenging people. This is not one of life's electives. If you feel that your child is safe emotionally and spiritually, then you can train your child to become more resilient. And you can also teach some behaviors that will assist them. Perhaps the child is inadvertently talking back to the teacher. Perhaps they can learn to speak more carefully or to answer back less often. I always taught my kids that it takes 2 to argue. The way you end an argument with a teacher is to say, okay, Rebbe, or yes, Mora, or yes, Mommy. All that being said, I've had to advocate for a child a few times, in my 28 years of parenting. And in all of these situations, we advocated without necessarily discrediting the teacher, which I think is also a very critical piece.
Wow, that lady really thought out what she was going to say. Let's talk about what happens if you're worried about next year's teacher you heard concerning reports.
I'll let you start on this one because this is a very delicate one that happens every year in every yeshiva about what to do when you get that mora, that rebbe that you don't even you had a bad experience with, right? Your last son or daughter didn't have her, or as I was saying before, she never taught before. They just hired a teacher because someone left during the summer, and you hear on the class chat that, oh my gosh, this year is going to be a disaster, right? As this mother, very eloquently explained, what is your role as a parent in this situation?
I think this is a great opportunity for parents to hear a menahel that has no skin in the game for them. If you're from Houston, then I do. But if you're from anywhere else, I'll just tell you, like, this happens all the time where a parent will call me and say about a Rebbe or a teacher that a lot of people love. I've heard like great things about them from other people. Everyone knows that, Mr. or Mrs. or Rabbi, whatever, is so bad. And it's no, there are a lot of people who really like that person. It really depends on your kid and whatever. So people are very quick to say everybody knows when it's so rare that's the case, if ever, because why would a school be keeping a person like that? Usually it's much more complicated. That said, when you advocate for switching a teacher, you don't know what you're advocating for, because a lot of times this happens where there's a reason that the school decided to put that child in that group. There's a lot of reasons. And you say, no, I don't like that teacher. So you switch, you try to switch, and then you cause yourself all these other problems that you don't even know
Yep.
about. And that happens so often. So I'm not saying there's no validity to the concern. I'm just saying tread lightly and with the sense of a little bit of anivas, a little bit of understanding that you might not have the entirety of the picture.
So I heard it in, going back to camp. One of my campers shared with me this year a story where a Rebbe said something to him that was really inappropriate, made fun of him in a really not nice way. That was the kid's story.
Mhm.
And I found this out because I called the parents up and I said, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, your son's having a great summer. I know him for 5 years. He looks different this summer than he did in the past. He doesn't have the same spark. What happened this year? And they shared with me this story that the Rebbe said something to the kid that was incredibly hurtful. Fine. And we spoke with him. I deal fine. They called me back a week later and said to me, did we make a mistake? I said, what do you mean? We didn't go to the menahel with the story. When it happened, even now, like we feel, do we have an achrayas, the te'elas harabim, to tell the menahel, to tell the Rosh Hashiva, the Rebbe said, made fun of my son Baramos, Vavayishim Barabim. We told, this guy, we told people, but we didn't make this, we didn't go to war to get this Rebbe fired. Maybe we should have. The te'elas harabim, look what he did to my son.
Wow.
So they asked me, did they make a mistake by not? They were like, almost because in other words, they're hearing from me that their son lost a little spark, was affected by it. So I said to them, listen, you're playing with, I know there are liars who's played both ways. If a Rebbe does something that is just, I don't know. Again, the story was the Rebbe said something not nice to the kid that was hurtful. Of course, there is a red line, but I'm not an advocate of getting a Rebbe fired. You had a very bad experience with the Rebbe, right? And maybe it was a bad shidduch, and maybe your Rebbe had a bad moment, and your Rebbe, the way you said over the story to me sounds really wrong. I don't need to play God as a parent. I said, if it was my child, I would not call the menahel to try to get the Rebbe in trouble 3 months
Right.
later.
In the moment,
So,
it
and I
would have been
think,
good to call them out.
yeah, in the moment, right, correct.
Maybe he
To
could have done
defend your
something.
son,
Maybe he could have talked to the
correct. Rebbe could have corrected it. Rebbe could have apologized. So often when it's 2 weeks before school and you're getting all that lashon hara about this Rebbe, this Mora, so much of it, as you said, everybody hates. And my answer is really, tell me 3 people, because they'll always have
right.
one.
One or two.
They'll always have one. I want 3,
Right.
not
Right.
1.
I do the same
And
thing.
usually by the time do they get to person number 3, really? Really? Well,
They
right,
once said, I heard from. Yeah, I do the same thing. So much so that my staff knows that if they ever say everybody, I'm like, they don't even say it to me.
listen, there are teachers that aren't good shidduchim, that
You
aren't
do your
good,
best. You do
shidduchs.
your best.
I had a story with one of my own children in which my son was given a Rebbe, and I knew the Rebbe peripherally. I knew his reputation, quote unquote. I called him an olive the yeshiva and I said, you got to change his class. So bad shidduch, my son it can't, too much of an important year, blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, do you trust me? And I said, I love you to bits. I trust you. Trust me, it's the good shidduch. And I said, wow, you're,
Wow.
and he said, yes.
Wow.
It was my son's best year in yeshiva.
Wow. That is a great story.
Overall, the answer is so much of life is seen through your own lens and your own experience.
Right.
And even when your older son didn't have a good relationship with his Rebbe and your daughter didn't have a relationship with his Mora, you're just hurting yourself because, as you said, most of the times the school won't let you change. And if you do change, you're going to miss out on your 3 best friends and and you're not going to get the right English teacher.
I'm going to say something crazy now. Hopefully it won't get in
No.
trouble. Yeah, I'm going to say it because I feel like we're trying to help the tzibur. So I'm going to say it, which is, this doesn't really happen in Houston, thank God. But I've heard from other Menahelim that in some schools, protexia goes a long way. And if, people who are big donors to the school or whatever, or miyukas to the whatever, they use that leverage to get placement. And I am sure that in the totality of the amount of people who've done that, it's only hurt kids. Like, you think since you have protexia, you're going to put in your 2 cents and you sort of move your kid around to the classes and the teachers you want. But I suspect that in the end, you hurt your kid because he or she does not get the natural selection and appropriate placements. And, you can get away with it once or whatever. But if you spend your life sort of using your protexia to protect your children from what you perceive as the best situations, not smart. So I pity those people. But no, in all seriousness, if you have the protexia, you're lucky. Shem should smile on you. You should use it. Leman chizik. Don't use it to try and influence the school, because in the end, too much of that really comes back to harm you. Not only because, as we said, the decisions might not be ideal, but even the chinuch that the kids get, a sense of respect for the system and understanding of the chashivas for a rebbe or teacher, where you say, "Oh, we didn't put you in that class," or all that stuff. The entirety of the package could do so much harm, even if you can get away with it.
Well said, Rabbi. Well said.
Have you experienced that, or you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, of course, I know you're talking about in the world of Protexia.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have parallel classes,
Right.
so that whole banter.
We really don't have it so
it-
much either, but I've been to conferences where people talk about it and they say, "What was I supposed to do?" But they end up really not necessarily helping the kids. It's a hard situation.
It's our situation, but you want to know people that have Protexia, do they get different treatment? We had this in a previous podcast, if you remember, a long time ago. The answer is, the reality of life is that Protexia helps, and sometimes it helps. It opens doors for you that you wouldn't, have open. Maybe it's a schus
Yeah.
for you helping the rabbin.
Yeah.
I love that we're speaking in code.
No, I'm not against protexia in total, but as it relates to getting your kid in a certain class, that's where I'm saying, as we're saying, it sometimes could do more harm than good overall. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay, the
Right.
last clip that we have here is probably the biggest transition for kids, is going from 8th grade to 9th grade, maybe from 12th grade to base medrash, but I'm not sure. But most 12th grade already base medrash dick in our yeshiva system.
Correct.
So really,
How about 12th grade to seminary?
right,
But
maybe.
that's
But
what?
going from 8th grade to 9th grade, at least for a boy, is certainly a very significant change. You were an 8th grade Rebbe, right? Or 7th grade?
I was in
You were
8th
eighth
grade
grade
Rebbe for
Rebbe.
9 years.
Right, and I was a 9th grade Rebbe, so we could really talk to this. But different.
Imagine going from Schonfeld to Garfield. I don't think we had any.
You're
Did we
a
have
loony
any?
bin after that.
I don't think we had any.
No, I never. I was in Atlanta, and you were in Passaic.
I was in
It's a
Passaic.
long
No.
distance. But
Yeah.
we could say we know that 9th grade, the amount of independent learning and the hours of learning and the Sunday full day and the night Seder and someplace even Shabbos, and it's just a tremendous amount of learning. And the level of learning is really amped up.
It's interesting that the 8th graders in camp, they're the most emotional, because it's really the end of, in their minds, in a certain sense, of their childhood.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
And so, like, for them, the end of camp it's a bubble that pops, and it's the emotion at the end of camp. The 8th grade in our camp is very powerful.
Is that a department, whatever, like a division, or?
Yeah, so 8th grade has their own division, and then comes Sifta. So the end of 8th grade, as wonderful as they are and as stark as they are, they're afraid.
We always in our school have a fun trip at the end of 8th grade. Like, not a Ruchnius per se. They go to Austin or San Antonio for a day, maybe boating. And some people have said, like, "Why do you do that? You should go to, Lakewood, see Russian." And we always said, like, they're going to have a lot of opportunity for that, but you want to really have like the last chance for them to have fun as a group, with the relationships with their Rebbe.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
something special about it, and they'll look back at it with a lot of fond memories. So let's hear from this 9th grade Rebbe who's going to talk about the transition.
I was asked how the 9th graders are dealing with the shock of Mesifta learning versus what they were used to in elementary school. It's a difficult question to answer in 2 or 3 minutes. It also, I think the question has to be asked in a different way. How they're dealing, that really depends on each boy. Some deal with it better, some have a hard time dealing with it, depending on what their chinuch was in the elementary school, the familiarity with learning Gemara, and most of all, maturity. The more mature boys will deal with it better. The immature boys will have a harder time dealing with it. But I think the question has to be rephrased. What can we do to help them deal with the shock? And the answer to that, I'd say, is 2 things. People ask me sometimes, what did you do? You turned on my boy. He's so excited about learning. I tell them I don't have any tricks. There are no tricks. But I would say there are two things that I do to try to be matzliach, that I should be matzliach and that they should be matzliach in ninth grade. And that is, first of all, I treat them as big boys. I don't talk down to them. I don't talk down to their level. My own children, I never spoke baby talk, even from day one. If you treat a boy as a big boy, he rises to the challenge.
So a funny story about this recording, Rabbi
Yeah,
Garfield. That's Rabbi Licht, Rabbi Yossi Licht, my ninth grade Rebbe from Shower Torah. His voice is undeniable. So even if you try to make Rabbi Licht anonymous, everyone, that voice, anyone who's had him knows him. So I called him up a few nights ago to ask him if he would want to share his thoughts. It was like 9:30 at night. So I'm thinking to myself, it's before 10 o'clock. Could I call my Rebbe? Yeah, I could call. I don't like calling my Rebbeim too late at night. I'll stay out. So he picks up the phone. I said, Shalom Aleichem, Rebbe. I told him the idea. He's like, oh, yeah, I'd be glad to help. He said, when do you need it by? I said, you know what, Troy, is it possible you could do it maybe sometime later tonight? And he says, well, I'm currently in England. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, why are you up? Punkt. But I hope that this was done after that.
So what did you take from that?
So really, what Rabbi Licht was saying, and there are no tricks. That was basically his point. Treat boys like big boys, and they'll act like big boys. You know, he said even for his own children, from the time that they are little children, he talks to them like big boys. But yes, it is a shock to go from elementary school to Mesivta is one of the biggest changes that anyone will ever go through. Especially if there's a base medrash as part of your high school, right? You walk in and, oh my gosh, you are not in Kansas anymore. And sometimes you just have to realize it's just about jumping in and swimming. And my general opinion of kids and people is they're a lot more resilient than you think. People will step up to the plate if there's an expectation in a yeshiva. And of course, talking about a mainstream yeshiva, every yeshiva and every type of kid is different. But if there's an expectation in a yeshiva to act a certain way, then ruba de ruba, a super majority of kids will fall in line because they want to be good. They want to meet expectations.
Right.
And, you know, there are no tricks. Yeah, Gemara, Rashi, Taisus, all of a sudden they come at the ninth grade and they're, you know, we could discuss their Chalibah at a different time, but there's a lot more Mefarshim. And they're going to work really hard. And some of them dorm, and some of them come home once a week, and some of them come once every 2 weeks. And they have night sitter every night all of a sudden. It's overwhelming. However, everyone does it. I don't know. You have stories of you know stories. I don't mean to lie. I'm not here to poo-poo the transition of ninth graders, regular kids, healthy, adjusted, kids, well-adjusted kids who go to Mesivta and all of a sudden, because of the hard schedule, 2 weeks in fall apart. The answer is no, because everyone else is doing it. So I kind of just do it. Is that too boring?
No,
Is that not
good
good
for
enough?
90%, let's say, but there are definitely kids who struggle. But the question is, okay, so by Hanukkah, by Hanukkah, a good Masifta will give the kid off at night Seder a little, or work with him, or give him a little bit easier. Find a way to make it work. Not everyone's able to do it, right away.
I remember when I switched yeshivas from Shower Torah to South Fallsburg. That was talk about a shock to the system.
You switched during high school? Or
I was in third year base management. But still, switching from 8th grade to 9th grade is nothing close to switching from Shower Torah to South Fallsburg. And you're supposed to stay the whole Zman. You go Rosh Chodesh El, and you come back after Yom Kippur. And I just couldn't do it. And I was in third year base management. I wasn't a little kid. I just couldn't do it. And I actually came back to Shower Torah for Shabbos. They want to know why I left Shower Torah? Well, they left a different time. I wanted to go out of town. I wanted to get away and be more secluded. I thought it was great for me. And I came back and I went to my Rebbe, Rav Shalom Spitz. I was in yeshiva for Shabbos. I'm Rebbe, I can't do this.
right.
I'm in yeshiva 3 weeks. They're more yeshivish than me. They're better at me than learning. It's a different derech halimud. I can't do this. And me and him discussed going. So we thought it was a good idea for me. And he basically just smiled, and he's like, "You'll be fine. You'll be fine." And that was it. And Baruch Hashem, I was fine, right? So look at that. So most of the time, as a parent, your son is switching to into high school. You're the one that needs a lot more chizuk than he does, because he's not home and you are petrified and all your anxiety is coming out in your son and your daughter, they'll be fine. They have a support group. They have friends, which are incredibly powerful drive and, and inspiration. And I don't mean to just simplify chinuch so quickly and so simply, but they'll be fine.
Right. Beautiful. That's a good message. I hate to leave that because I always feel like, but what if they're not? What if they're the kids that are not? Right.
Then they'll go to Houston.
I would love to take them to elementary school. They'd be welcome, but I can't speak for the high school
Maybe that's a summary of our back to school
special episode.
is they'll be fine. Baruch Hashem, we're here trying to help parents get ready for the school year. But yes, there is that 10% that will struggle, and those are the special ones. I had a struggling camper. Of course, everything comes back to camp. And the mother was almost embarrassed that her son was struggling, and she was embarrassed that I was dealing with her son in camp so much. And I texted the mother, the easy kids are how we run camp. Kids like your son are why we run camp. And I feel it's that way in yeshiva also. The 90% is how we run yeshiva. It's how we're able to just make a schedule and kids follow it. The 10% that take up 90% of our time, that's why we're in it.
100%.
That's why that's why we're in it.
100%. 100%. What a nice way to end off. We cannot wait to get back to our regular format and our schedule, which will be after Sukkot. Until then, you could always call us at 443-686-9339. That's 443-686-9339 with any questions or comments. We'd love to include them in the future broadcast. Or you can send an email to thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com.
Rabbi Garfield, have a chesivas taiva. A good shur, a nice beginning to the year. Looking forward to seeing you after Sukkot.